Hello, this is Cody Carlson doing my case study for EDL 854 Missing Booster Club Funds. Brief summary, this is a middle school that has a situation with missing funds after a basketball game. Earlier in the week, an argument occurred between a Booster Club parent and the principal. She wanted the PTA to pay for her daughter's trip to a cheerleading event, who's a seventh grader at the school. Principal turned down the proposal, stating that's outside the parameters of a legitimate PTA-supported project since it only benefits one student, which I agree with, and the school relies heavily on a lot of parental volunteers to help with gate collection and concession stands at athletic events. After the sold-out home basketball game, the principal counted the receipts and found out the ticket accounting sheet and the total of cash returned did not equal out. So category one, what do we know? We know George Washington Middle School is a low socioeconomic status school. It's located in the old residential area in the large city of Warren, and the parents work at textile mills in the industrial park. The principal is Mr. Daniel Stevens. He's been the principal there for 4 years, well liked and respected. He doesn't have an assistant principal. He relies on parental volunteers. And then we have Mrs. Alice Bowman. She's an active Booster Club member. She's been doing it for quite a many years. She's got a daughter in 7th grade, and then she had 2 sons that now go to high school. Her daughter is a skilled cheerleader who was selected to march at the All-State Holiday Parade in New York. Mrs. Bowman requested that the school PTA pay for Lucy's trip since it's her academic. She's a part of the cheerleading team there, so it promotes her successes, and Mrs. Bowman worked at the pass gate of the home game Monday night when the funds went missing. What else do we know? Mr. Will Dumas, he just gotten paid. That's what he told Mr. Stevens at the game, had a large stack of bills in his wallet, and told Mr. Stevens that he'd paid his interest fee with a $50 bill. And then at the basketball game, the crowd was large. It met seating capacity. Mr. Stevens knew the number of the pre-numbered tickets and inventory of concession items before the event started. We know each ticket cost $5 and that parents were working the pass gate. Due to capacity, Mr. Stevens was unable to supervise this pass gate and concession stands, so he was not able to oversee the money. What we need to know is the legal rights of the investigation. Who do we need to include? Would be nice to know, did Mr. Dumas really pay with the $50 bill? Maybe he was mistaken. Maybe the money was exchanged for different change to somebody else because the $50 was no longer in there. What happened to the ripped tickets? Were they thrown away? Were they actually ripped? It would be nice to find those. And was anyone else working with Mrs. Bowman? Booster Club president always likes 2 parents to manage concessions and 2 parents to monitor gates. Who's the other parent, and did they follow procedures and count the money together at the end of the event? Problem identification is really, we got to figure out a few things. What happened to the $50? Did Mrs. Bowman steal it? What happened to the missing tickets? If we could find those, we would have a lot of answers to that. And maybe this was an accident. Maybe the money just got mishandled. Category 2. My first step would be I'm going to inform proper parties. I'm going to inform my superintendent just so that he's in the loop and knows what's going on. I'm going to provide him with all the information and facts. We'll review district policy together so we're on the same page, and we'll together figure out who we're going to include in the investigation moving forward. Then next I have to contact the Booster Club president. First off, I'd like to see if Mrs. Bowman had told him and reported the discarded tickets already. And then I'm going to provide information and facts, just like I did with the superintendent, and review how we're going to move forward with this. Potentially there's an event coordinator, probably not in this situation, but I'd handle it the same way as the Booster Club president. Category 2, or step 2, I'm going to safeguard the inventory. I'm already halfway there when I found out that the money wasn't equal up, so I'm going to deposit that money, so that's safe. And then I'm going to continue my procedures for the rest of the night. I'm going to lock up the tickets. I'm going to secure up the accounting sheet so no one else can touch those. And then I'm going to try and find those discarded tickets. I'll talk to my janitor staff, see if the trash has been taken out yet, and hopefully we can find those tickets. Step 3, I'm going to investigate. by myself first. I'm going to look at the camera footage. Hopefully we can find some evidence of either her throwing the tickets away, or hopefully not, but her taking the money. I'm going to try and piece as much information together that is factual so that I can have to use moving forward. At the time, I'm going to keep all this information private. I'm going to talk to the other gate worker, make sure they followed protocol and counted the money at the very end. And I'm going to ask about the discarded tickets, the amount collected, what about the $50 difference. I'm going to make sure I'm going to stay ethical and professional during this investigation. I'm not going to blame anybody. I'm not going to make them uncomfortable. I'm going to include another administrator or a legal officer, somebody in there with me, and we're going to document all conversations and information collected so that we have factual information. And lastly, we'll interview Mrs. Bowman because she was the one that was in charge of that gate, and also because she's suspect number one. I'll ask her about the discarded tickets, the amount collected, where's the $50, what did she do with the tickets. I'm going to present factual information and evidence to her if it seems like she's the one that took it. I'm going to stay ethical and professional during this investigation, and again, have an administrator and a legal officer to be a part of it with me, and we'll document all conversations and information collected. Category 3, resolving the issues based on promoting the success of all students. With these decisions throughout this case study, I had to make sure that every one of my decisions promoted the academic success and personal well-being of every student. The first thing I did was my discipline for the party involved based on the evidence and ruling. I have to set the standard that the misuse of school funds cannot be taken lightly, and especially if the money was taken with intent. I have to make my decisions based off facts and the level of severity of this act. Yes, they were stealing money from the school, if that's so what happened, but it's only $50. It's not like they stole $5,000 or something. Either in my investigation, Mrs. Bowman will either have a confession of wrongdoing or she'll have reasoning and proof of doing the right thing. She just failed to present the tickets to me. This helps promote student success by these school funds provide students with opportunities to help them promote success for all students. So if the money starts disappearing from the school funds, then students are missing out on these learning opportunities. Showing that these behaviors will not be tolerated will be a lesson that will show that it's unacceptable to steal from our students. Promoting the academic success and personal well-being of every student. Again, maybe have an annual meeting to go over procedures, because we rely so heavily on parental volunteers, and it's a middle school. Well, every 2-3 years, new parents are coming in and helping out. So it might not be a bad thing. Well, it should be a necessary thing to have a annual meeting to go over what the procedures are, and have it be a meeting that if you don't show up to this meeting, then you can't volunteer and participate with us, because we have to safeguard our funds. And then the third way of promoting the academic success and personal well-being of every student is assess and revise procedures that are in place. As the building leader, I have to accept responsibility for this situation if we can't get a confession out of Mrs. Bowman, because I rely so heavily on parental volunteers, and that is not a solid practice to be taken. So with that, after my responsibility, I'm going to fix it. So with the PTA and the Booster Club, we're going to brainstorm how to make a more solid practice. Perhaps I include staff members in helping with gate concessions. Category 4, debriefing my reflection. I thought Mr. Stevens was a good building leader. He did a great job dealing with Mrs. Bowman's request for the payment of Lucy's trip, stating that it wasn't benefiting all students, so he couldn't do it, even though he's proud of Lucy. He's not given enough resources to do his duties correctly, but he does the best he can. Mrs. Bowman was telling the truth about the tickets, I thought, after I read it. I believe the tickets were torn. She just made a huge mistake by throwing them away, not just keeping them and showing them. And my whole time through this situation reading it, I was always thinking this is why you hire trusted adults for financial duties. Financial duties such as gate admission can be easily mishandled with all the cash. Mistakes do happen, so it's important that you have people that you trust when they do. And it's never a good thing when you doubt the people that are handling finances, especially in educational finances. Three things I valued. I valued Mr. Stevens' relationships with the parents, students, and staff. Being able to have genuine conversations with parents goes a long way, I believe. Though she was unsuccessful, Mrs. Bowman felt comfortable approaching him, so it goes a long way. It shows that his genuine conversations do go a long way, and he's actively seen and genuinely cares to support his students in their activities. I valued the community of George Washington Middle School. Even though it's not a high socioeconomic standings, they take pride in their school, and together as a team, they support their students. And then I valued Mrs. Bowman's time, having 3 students go through that middle school and being able to volunteer all 3 times. That's awesome. She could have not done it after the first year, but she continues to give her time, even though she selfishly asked for the PTA funds. I valued her time. Unresolved issues, open to further investigation. I guess we'll never know maybe what happened to the tickets. Was the table in view of the security cameras? That would be nice to have. A good thinking that you don't really think about until this situation happens. Was it on film, or do we put the table where it can be on film? Was there another parent volunteer working the gates with Mrs. Bowman? If so, did they count the money together before filling out the accounting sheet, or was it just her by herself? I'd like to know how Mrs. Bowman handled the conversation with Mr. Stevens about the missing money after their last conversation that didn't end so well. Why don't school employees work the admission gate or concession stand? If so, does the school have the budget available to pay staff members to work the gates? And why can't Mr. Stevens appoint another staff member to help with supervision duties? Probably another budget deal. And lastly, is this the first time that funds have not added up or gone missing, or is this the first issue that they've had? Category 5, reflection of standard 5. Through all my decisions, I promoted the effective and efficient management of the school or district by counting the money in front of the security guard on the deposit run, following my procedures that I'm supposed to. I always kept a cognitive tab on inventory and ticket numbers, understanding how much inventory I have, and I was always fair and diligent with my investigation. I didn't accuse Mrs. Bowman right away, and I focused only on facts. As the building leader, I promoted the social learning of every student by promoting athletics. Even though we only have 3 sports for our middle school, we still promote athletics that provide life lessons to our students that teach them how to be productive citizens. Celebrating the successes of students. Just one example was Lucy getting talked about on the announcements. We're going to celebrate all of our successes of our students. And then active and visual in the community. I was friendly and approachable. I supervised the basketball games, and I knew parents by name and had quality relationships. And as the building leader, I promote student academic learning. My top priority was always the welfare of all my students. I refused to use PTA funds in a way that would not benefit all students. I have a strong community school relationship, even though George Washington Middle School is of low socioeconomic status. Parental volunteer rate is outstanding. And then academically eligible students, through our athletics, we provide extra motivation for students to excel in the classroom. And my conclusion, it's of great importance to have as much detail and attention to your financial workers. Even though you don't have the resources available, you still need to try and monitor them the best you can. It's very important to safeguard your school's funds with procedures that are in place and that are followed. And lastly, it's important to trust the people that handle your financial responsibilities. Here are my standards. It's been a great class, and I've learned from all of you. Thank you. Have a good one.